Good afternoon. This will be a country analysis over Kenya, brought to you by myself, Antoinette Yin, Craig A. Conrad, Martin Jarvis, and Dahi Kim. Let's start with a country overview of Kenya. Kenya is located in eastern Africa, bordering the Indian Ocean to its east, Somalia and Ethiopia to the north, South Sudan and Uganda to the west, and Tanzania to the south. Once called British East Africa, Kenya had gained its independence from the United Kingdom in 1963. In 1964, the name was changed to the Republic of Kenya after its first inclusive election. The current population of Kenya is around 45 to 47 million individuals. This population number takes into account the estimates for mortality rates from AIDS and poor access to health care. Nairobi is the capital of the Republic of Kenya. However, most of the population lives around and along the shores of Lake Victoria on the western border. The second largest city in Kenya is Mombasa, known to be the gateway to the country by the sea. Current leadership inside of the Republic of Kenya include His Excellency Uratu Kenya serving as president, and His Excellency William Ruto serving as Deputy President. His Excellency Kenyatta is the fourth and current President of the Republic of Kenya. He is the son of Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya's first President. President Kenyatta is in his second term after being re-elected in 2017. His Excellency Ruto is the first Deputy President appointed in the Republic of Kenya, after being elected to the post in 2013 with President Kenyatta under the Jubilee ticket. The current political party in the Republic of Kenya is the Jubilee Party, and they have three pillars: transforming lives, transforming society, and transforming the nation. Under those three pillars, President Kenyatta and Deputy President Ruto would like to accomplish several things during their final term. The first of those things is to create 1.3 million jobs every year. Next is to establish a government-sponsored apprenticeship program that would last up to 12 months for all university, technical, and vocational graduates. Their next goal is to expand their free primary school program to include a free secondary school program throughout Kenya. The next goal is to facilitate mass housing production to at least 500,000 affordable homes in the next 5 years across the country. Through working with financial institutions, private developers, manufacturers of building materials, and cooperatives, they would like to deliver those homes faster and reduce the cost of construction by up to 50%. Their next goal is to expand free maternity health care to all expectant mothers for up to 1 year. Their next goal is to ensure that every citizen in Kenya is connected to a reliable electricity source on or off the grid by 2020. Their next goal is to expand the food and agriculture production by reducing the cost to farmers. The resulting increase in production would produce an expansion in capacity. Their next goal is to complete the 57 large-scale dam construction program to enhance that food and agriculture production by at least 1.2 million acres. Their final plan or goal for their last term is to make the Republic of Kenya government more transparent and accountable through government digitization of all government procurement.
Hi, this is Tai Kim. I'm gonna discuss about the business practices in Kenya. First, I will talk about the language. Kenya is a multilingual country. The primary languages in Kenya are English and Swahili. English is the business language in Kenya. Swahili, also called Kiswahili, is the national language. It's a combined African language spoken by close to 100% of the Kenyan population. Even illiterate Kenyans know some basic Swahili. Also, Swahili is the one of the most common African languages, and it is spoken in many countries such as Tanzania, Burundi, and Uganda. Now, let's move on to the literacy. According to the World Factbook, Kenya's literacy rate is 78%, while the male literacy rate is 81.1%. For female is 74.9%. It showed a gap between the gender. Next one is working hours, lunchtime and break time. The working hours per day are 8 hours, and this shouldn't be more than 48 hours per week. So they work 8 to 5 in weekdays and 8 to noon on Saturday. And Kenya doesn't have for break during working hours, but they have an hour lunch time. And the last one is in my part, it's time zone. The time zone in Kenya is +3 UTC time, which is the Eastern Africa time zone. It is 8 hours from the Central Time of America. There is no daylight saving times for Kenya.
Hello, this is Craig Conrad, and I'll be covering the economic resources in Kenya. Like many countries in Africa, Kenya has a wide variety of economic resources. Our sources reported Kenya as having 26 export industries. Top 3 of those exports are agricultural in nature. To Kenya's credit, 10 of the top 26 export industry are replenishable in nature, and this allows Kenya to thwart their country's wealth from being exported through non-replenishable items such as oils and minerals. As you can see on the chart, coffee, tea, mate, and spices is by far the largest market with $1.42 billion in exports, which is 26% of Kenya's entire export market. The next 2 exports added together do not equal the first. Trees, plants, bulbs, roots, and cut flowers export at over $537 million, and edible vegetables, certain roots, and tubers export at over $262 million. Also of note, Kenya only started exporting cut flowers in the early 1980s, and now their exports make up 30% of the EU's imports and are now rivaling Holland's flower market in the EU. Here we have Kenya's import data that shows a steady growth over a 20-year period. Imports went from approximately 20 billion Kenyan shillings to just short of 150 billion. Kenya's main imports are 24% from minerals, fuels, and oils, 11% from machinery, nuclear reactors, and boilers, and 8.1% from vehicles other than railway. This chart shows Kenya's main import partners are India, China, and the United Arab Emirates. The United States places 6th on this list with $667 million. Also of note is that the foreign direct investments is a reported $394 million and the remittance rate of approximately $266 million from Kenyan nationals sending money back to their families. All of these numbers indicate that there are many external parties not only helping the Kenyan economy, but having a vested interest in seeing the economy flourish. Although Kenya has had a recent slowing on exports as reported for the first half of this year, this chart shows that the overall trend for export is continual growth over the last 20 years. Exports went from approximately 10 billion Kenyan shillings to approximately 52 billion. Here we see that Kenya's main export partners are Uganda, United Kingdom, and Tanzania. The United States places 5th on this list with $347 million. Kenya has a population of approximately 45 to 47 million people with a GDP of 152 billion US dollars, showing a 5.6% growth rate over the last year and a 5.4% growth rate over the last 5 years. Per capita GDP is $3,361, and the average income for a single person is approximately $278 per month. Now I will turn it over to Martin, who will be covering Kenya's competitiveness.
Public institutions are weak, and the reason is corruption and bribery are endemic in government institutions in Kenya. Now, before we go any further, I just want to reiterate that Kenya won its independence in 1963. And so from 1885 Berlin Conference, which divided up Africa, up through the Mau Mau Uprising, and to their independence, that's 80 years. And so all Kenya is known from government is exploitation. And the government officials benefiting from that exploitation. So when they took power, after 8 decades, this is how a government operates. But Kenya is determined to make changes, but at the particular point right now, they're still struggling with corruption, particularly bribery. Their licensing offices, for example, and this pertains especially to businesses, because businesses need licenses to operate. And what we'll find are it's necessary to bribe government officials to get the necessary licenses to operate a business. As well, tax administrators are bribed. They take bribes to make the taxes look good or make taxes go away. So that's not really benefiting the government. And in the long run, it's not going to benefit the business as they might get exposed. Custom agents, border patrol agents, bribes. So customs, you have a situation where a business needs to bring in product or ship out product. In order to make the process move smoothly, bribes are often required. As far as the border control agents, we have them turning a blind eye given the right price. And so that is a problem as far as terrorism, allowing terrorists to enter the country, which could pose a problem to foreign investors who might be on the hit list for particular terrorist organizations. Property rights. Now, property rights are very important to not only to Kenyan citizens, but also to potential business investors and entrepreneurs. Because every business person needs to know that if they purchase a piece of property, that they're assured that that property belongs to them. Right now we have situations of bribery regarding land administration. And so there are no real assurances that an individual or an entity actually owns a property, even if they've purchased it. Okay? Because of bribery, there are instances where titles disappear. Legitimately purchased titles actually disappear from the title office, and counterfeit titles are being produced for a price. So this is a very important aspect that the Kenyan officials are actually looking into to correct, because this makes a potential investor or entrepreneur wary to purchase property in Kenya. Judicial system challenges. One common denominator regarding businesses worldwide is that at one time or another in every business's life, they're going to have to stand before a judiciary, or at least participate in legal proceedings. Every potential investor, every potential entrepreneur needs to be assured that if and when that time comes, they're standing before a judiciary or going through legal proceedings, that they're going to get at least a fair shake. Currently, that is not the situation in Kenya. Kenyans are working on it, a lot better than it was, but bribery will get you everywhere. Some businesses have just acquiesced to, oh, well, that's just the cost of doing business. This is how we operate. Because if we don't do it, our competition is going to do it, and our competition will have a leg up on us. But another negative about the judiciary is that if a foreign company is going before a judiciary against a Kenyan local, the judiciary is most likely going to favor the Kenyan local regardless of who's right or who's wrong. That's a problem for business investors. As well, it takes the judiciary approximately a year and a half to enforce a contract. That's also a problem for business investors. There's a definite feel in Kenya that judiciary is corrupt. Half of the Kenyan population claims to have paid bribes to police simply to avoid going through the Kenyan judiciary. Judicial system reforms. Over the past 8 years, Kenya has been attempting to make changes despite pushback from corrupt government mindsets, which have been with Kenya, akin to Kenya's administrations and government since 1885, since the Berlin Conference, which actually divided the nation per the whims of Europeans. In 2010, Kenya changed its constitution, established a new constitution in an effort to combat those negative mindsets. Well, one of the facets of that constitution was, rather than simply having one ruling party, to divide the country into 47 counties, each actually responsible for administrating their own government, their own financials, of course with some oversight. This coming year, each of those 47 counties are due to receive $1 million to run their county. And so that is a positive change. And in 2011, there were a number of judges removed from the bench based on this new constitution's new vetting process. In 2012, they instituted a judiciary transformation network highlighting certain areas of the particular judiciary that was positive to the people, the population, and the actual actions that the governments are responsible for on an everyday basis. In 2016, 302 police officers were removed for refusing to be vetted. So Kenya is making inroads in transforming their judiciary because they recognize that if they're going to compete on that world stage, there are going to have to be assurances that potential business investors and business entrepreneurs have that the legal process is not going to be working against them, especially if they do nothing wrong. Education. Educating the population, particularly the young people, is absolutely necessary for Kenya if Kenya wants to move up and become a prosperous nation. It's absolutely necessary that young people are educated, and when they become of age, they enter the workforce. They become entrepreneurs. They begin making money, and that money they will be investing, infusing back into their own economy. And with the number of young people we have in Kenya, 40% of the population is 15 years old and younger. When that population becomes of age, of working age, of business person age, they'll be able to impact tremendously the economy of that nation if they're not a drudge on the economy. Okay? And so the numbers that Kenya touts on the surface are positive. But as you look closely into the situation really isn't that positive at all. And it's going to take some care and some intention in order to fix this situation. Right now, Kenya is touting what they call an 8-4-4 education plan. That's 8 years in elementary school, that's 4 years in high school, and 4 years in college. 5.3% of Kenya's GDP is actually designated for education, which is about the same as the United States, which is about half of what Cuba utilizes for its education, which has a very, very strong education institution. Kenya also touts 100% enrollment in elementary in school-age children. Now, again, that sounds good, but then when you consider that there's a 40% unemployment rate in Kenya right now, and 40% of the population is 15 years and younger, there is an extremely high fertility rate, and young girls, there's an early marriage. There are early marriages. People are getting married very early. So although we have that 100% enrollment in school-age children, based on the statistics, they're not going to be in school very long, okay? And so that has to be addressed. I think the fertility issue has to be addressed. The unemployment issue has to be addressed. Because it's very important that although you have 100% participation as a school-age child, we need to make sure that all of these 100% of these children graduate high school and go on to college. Otherwise, the future is not going to be as positive as it could be. As well, another detriment to the education is that 20% of Kenyan households have electricity, and 41% obtain water from ponds, lakes, shallow wells, and rivers, unsanitary sources. So in order for a school-age child to actually prosper and function well, they're going to need to have electricity. They're going to need to have clean drinking water. They can't afford these illnesses that are born from impure water. So all these factors working together, that is the infrastructure of electricity and the infrastructure of water. We need to have in Kenya more coverage of citizens with these basic needs. Now, these may not have been basic needs in the past to survive, but they are basic needs in order for children to do well in school, to continue. Because as well, for pregnancy or marriage, knocking a child out of school, the hopelessness of not being able to keep up because your environmental circumstances are not up to par is also the catalyst that causes many young people to leave school. So although the education looks good from the surface, these issues must be addressed, or the children and their education are not going to come to fruition later on in life. And if these children, if they don't have their education, they're going to end up being more of a drain on the economy than a boost, than a stimulus. Communication infrastructure. Communication is a very important component for a prosperous population. For a business to prosper, communication is absolutely necessary. To communicate with employees, to communicate with suppliers, to communicate with customers. Whether it be via telephone lines or internet, communication is very important. So what we have in Kenya right now, less than 1% have landlines, which is okay, because that's pretty much the way it is in the world right now. 90% of the population uses cell phones, and that is good. 26% are internet users, and there's free local radio and television broadcast. I believe that a saturated market, there's no room for growth. But with 26% internet usage, a savvy business can exploit that to their advantage. So the communication is there and it is available. So it's a very positive situation for Kenyans because everybody is able to contact anybody. So for a business to prosper in Kenya, that would be no problem. Problem might be the electricity. The problem might be the water. But as far as the communication goes, Kenya is fine. Transportation infrastructure. Transportation is very important to a healthy population, a healthy economy, and healthy business. Foreign investors and foreign entrepreneurs see transportation as very necessary to conduct any kind of business. Transportation in, transportation out, transportation throughout the nation. You need transportation. You have to get your products in. You have to get products out. You have customers that have to be shipped to, distribution centers. You need transportation. You need viable, reliable transportation. Transportation is a must if Kenya wants to prosper, if Kenya wants to grow. And right now in the area of transportation, Kenya is just a little bit lacking, but they are trying. Currently, Kenya has 197 airports, but only 16 of them are paved. But 16 of them are paved right now. That's a positive. Kenya has 100,000 miles of roadway in various conditions. Kenya also has, now this is a positive, Kenya has 2,700 miles of railway. But they've had that railway for a while, except for the last 298 miles of that railway, which was completed in 2017 by China, who recognizes the potential investment in Kenya. So Kenya is trying. Kenya is making deals, recognizing that it can't be the old Kenya if it wants to compete with the new. Because there are many countries in Africa. So Kenya has competitors for businesses, and they're willing to change. One thing that Kenya has done for its infrastructure, they've issued sovereign bonds, and that money they're using to improve their infrastructure. I believe Kenya is well on the way in the area of competitiveness, because they recognize that other nations within Africa are their competitors. So they are competing for the competitors.
Healthcare inside the Republic of Kenya is an extreme concern, with only 0.2 physicians for every 1,000 individuals in the population. The hospital situation isn't much better, 1.4 beds per every 1,000 in the population. Currently, the AIDS virus is still a concern in the Republic of Kenya. 4.8% of adults are living with the AIDS virus. However, Kenya does have plans in place to alleviate some of those issues. They have a plan to enlist over 100,000 community health volunteers to reach out to at least 20 households per volunteer. This program will include options for the population to have telemedicine through a secure internet connection or through clinics that are closer to their homes. They also would like to have e-hubs that collect and disseminate health information and ways to access those things. There's an estimated of 28,000 deaths per year just from inadequate health care and the AIDS virus. As you can see, the Republic of Kenya is a country that is rich in resources and in culture. For being a country that is still new to its independence, Kenya has made strides to improve the overall lives of the population. Through the goals of the current administration, Kenya has the outlook of positive growth in the future. Thank you very much for watching our presentation. I hope you learned as much as we did making it.